an electoral campaign that was criticized for its lack of concrete promises, one commitment that Barack Obama did make was to withdraw all U.S. combat troops from Iraq within 16 months of taking office.
If you follow my plan to begin withdrawing troops and having our combat troops out in 16 months, we will have been there for 7 years. I think the American people understand that that is been a significant commitment, both of blood and of treasure.
A recent article by Gareth Porter claims that mere hours into his presidency, Obama was visited by a contingent of military leaders led by General David Petraeus, who pressured him into backing off on his withdrawal plans. The Real News spoke to Gareth Porter about his findings.
My article tells the story of how Obama essentially shocked General David Petraeus, the commander of Central Command, with responsibility for the entire Middle East, by telling Petraeus and Gates and the commander now in Iraq, General Oderno, that he wanted them to go ahead and give him a plan, an operational plan to get all U.S. combat troops out of Iraq within 16 months, what he had been saying that he wanted to do since the middle of the campaign last year. Now, this took Petraeus and Gates and Oderno by surprise, apparently, because they had been under the impression that they could roll Obama, that he was not going to stand up to them. And this really goes back to part of the story that I tell based on Bob Woodward's book, The War Within, where he quotes General Jack Keane. Keane was saying to Gates, and presumably to Petraeus as well, let's keep Petraeus in the region, move him from the commander in Iraq to being CENTCOM commander, replace him with Oderno, and keep these people there so that when a Democratic administration comes in, when and if a Democratic administration comes in, they'll have to deal with Petraeus, with the huge prestige that it's assumed Petraeus has in American politics, and the Democratic president will not dare to override Petraeus's recommendation to keep the troops there.
This isn't the first time that Obama has gone head-to-head with Petraeus over Iraq.
After devoting $1 trillion, which is what this thing optimistically will end up having cost, thousands of American lives, the creation of an environment in which al-Qaeda in Iraq could operate because it didn't exist prior to our invasion, that we have increased terrorist recruitment around the world, that Iran has been strengthened, that bin Laden and al-Qaeda are stronger than at any time since 2001, and that the process of Iraqi reconstruction and their standard of living would continue to be lower than it was pre-invasion, that if that had been the deal, I think most people would have said that's a bad deal. That does not make sense. That does not serve the United States' strategic interests. And so I think that some of the frustration you hear from some of the questioners is that we have now set the bar so low that modest improvement in what was a completely chaotic situation, to the point where now we just have the levels of intolerable violence that existed in June of 2006, is considered success. And it's not. This continues to be a disastrous foreign policy mistake.
Last July, when he met with Petraeus in Baghdad, when he traveled there during the campaign, told Petraeus, you know, he heard him out, he heard his arguments that he should let the troops remain much longer than the 16 months, but he said, look, that's your job to keep the troops there as long as possible. My job as president is to take a broader strategic viewpoint, and I'm going to say, I'm going to take a different view that we need to pull those troops out within 16 months.
So now that Obama is in the Oval Office and following through on his promise, and in doing so opposing the will of the military leadership, how is the military going to react to this? The
second part of the story is, and the real important part of the story is that the military is not going to take that passively. What I have learned is that a number of generals, senior generals, retired and active duty, are now talking about how they can seed the storyline in the U.S. media that Obama's policy of 16-month withdrawal is too risky, that it will cause a collapse in Iraq, that the stability that they say that they have achieved there will be lost, and that it will be Obama's fault. That's the line that they're going to start feeding the people who cover the Pentagon in the media. And that was foreshadowed when Jack Keane appeared on the Lehrer NewsHour the very night of that meeting in the White House, January 21st, the day after Obama was inaugurated, when he made that very argument that it's too risky, it's going to risk the political stability that we have achieved in Iraq with the U.S. occupation.
Given the hard-fought gains that we have made in Iraq over a strategy that was failing for 3 years and a very dramatic turnaround in 18 months, and now we have an Arab Muslim state that elects its government and is allied with the United States, that wants a political relationship with us and not with the Iranians in terms of being an ally. That is a major plus for us. No one wants to squander those gains, and that would be their concern, and force reduction is certainly an issue that's on the table that they have concern about.
They have created this narrative, as many of us know very well, that Petraeus' strategy and the surge in troops basically achieved this wonderful victory in Iraq by quieting things in the Sunni provinces and essentially defeating the Shiite militiamen loyal to Muqtada al-Sadr. Whereas in fact we know that what really happened was it was the Iranians who intervened with the Shiites, with Muqtada al-Sadr, to convince him to stand down so that they could avoid civil war in Iraq between one Shiite group and another Shiite group, and protect their main interest, which is to stabilize the regime of al-Maliki, which was their ally in Baghdad. So it's a false narrative, but they want to make sure that that is the narrative that will survive. But because of Obama's policy now, what they want to do is to make the argument that Obama will be to blame after the troops come out, and inevitably there will be stories coming out about the Iraqi government is leaning towards Iran, and there will be new fighting between Shiites and Sunnis, inevitably.
Donate today and receive a new documentary film available to members of the Real News Network. The History of the National Security State with legendary author Gore Vidal. Bonus features of the DVD include an in-depth response to Vidal from ex-CIA analyst Ray McGovern, who served under 7 U.S. presidents, an exclusive interview with Colin Powell's former Chief of Staff Larry Wilkerson, and an insightful interview with oil policy analyst Antonia Juhas.
The news magazine of the screen. Living glimpses of history in the making.
Hollywood and Washington is a symbiotic relationship. They both deal with illusions. Reality doesn't often play much of a part. I think I saw through the myth of the Cold War almost from the beginning. I was a Washington political kid from a political family. Roosevelt first had radio because he had this great speaking voice and everyone liked to hear. Truman proceeded to break every arrangement that Roosevelt had set up for a peaceful coexistence. And Truman thought that it would be a good idea. Why not just stay armed all the time? And then he devised the national security state. You've got to go up and swear allegiance to the United States or else you're a commie. I mean, we had imported fascism. We get Dwight Eisenhower, who said that we have this great military industrial complex. It is a dangerous thing. And he said this is going to change everything. And the way our country's governed is going to change us politically. Along comes Jack Kennedy, who wanted to make his mark, believed in the Cold War. But he said, in this kind of politics, it is the appearance of things that matters. I think everybody should take a sober look at the world about us. The national security state still exists. Only it isn't communism anymore, it's terrorism. This is the most serious thing that has happened in the history of the United States. Knowledge is power. We need an honest news system.
We need the real news.
This is the sort of thing we can build right now without anyone else's permission from the government or from the business community. It's the powers in our hands.
If we're not going to sleepwalk into more wars, we think we need to start with a television news network that won't bow to pressure and has the courage to seek facts. And that means independent economics. And that's why we need you.
Make a tax-deductible donation now of at least $10 a month or a one-time give of at least $75. As a thank you for your support, we will send you the new documentary film, The History of the National Security State.